Internal Revenue Service IRS Tax News. IRS offers guidance to taxpayers on identity theft involving unemployment benefits. IR 2021-24, January 28, 2021. Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today urged taxpayers who receive Forms 1099-G for unemployment benefits they did not actually get because of identity theft to contact their appropriate state agency for a corrected form. So in 2020, more people are going to be on the unemployment or possibly has some type of unemployment income. If it was legitimate income, then the state would typically have to send out the 1099-G. 1099s typically being a form that would indicate that we may have something that would have to be included in income and be paying taxes on. In the case of unemployment, which is reported on a 1099-G, that would typically be the case, meaning the 1099 went to you and it went to the federal government, and it's going to be reporting that you should be including the unemployment compensation in income and possibly be paying taxes on it. Now, if there was some kind of fraud that took place, someone stole your identity or something like that, or someone you know, and then they collected unemployment, and you didn't actually get the unemployment, but someone else basically committed fraud and possibly did, or something like that happened, then the government still sends the 1099 to you as the taxpayer, and you're saying, hey, look, I didn't get the income. I don't want to have to report the 1099 information on my income because then I'll have to be paying taxes on it, and I didn't actually get the unemployment benefit. It was taken by somebody else. So if you don't include the 1099 income, then of course the IRS will check it to the 1099 they got, and you'll probably get a notice and it'll hold up your whole tax filing and everything. So the only way to really fix the 1099 problem is go to the issuer of the 1099, which in this case would be the state. So you got to go to the state and say, hey, look, there's been some kind of problem. There's been some kind of fraud. I didn't get the unemployment. I need you to send the 1099 corrected 1099, not simply so that you can fill out the tax return. That's not the problem. It needs to go to the IRS, because if it doesn't go to the IRS, it's gonna cause a problem when you process the tax return without the 1099 income. And that's a general rule for any kind of 1099 issue. If you get a 1099 and it's false, the problem is that the IRS has the 1099 as well, and if it's something that you don't include on your tax return, it's quite likely that the government, the IRS, when processing the return, will automatically check off whether that income has been included. If it has not, then they're going to send a letter and take a question about it. So again, if you have this 1099-G, then you got to go to the state to see to make sure to look to get it corrected so that you can process your tax return smoothly. So states issue Form 1099-G to the taxpayer and to the IRS to report what taxable income, such as refunds on or unemployment benefits, were issued by state agencies. During 2020, millions of taxpayers were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic through job loss or reduced work hours. Some taxpayers who faced unemployment or reduced work hours applied for and received unemployment compensation from their state. Under federal law, unemployment benefits are taxable income. So if you got unemployment income, it's going to be taxable income, and the IRS or the government or the state should send you a 1099, that being the 1099-G, in order to report the income on your tax return. However, scammers also took advantage of the pandemic by filing fraudulent claims for unemployment compensation using stolen personal information of individuals who had not filed claims. So obviously, this problem has invited a lot of fraud cases to be taking place as well. So payments made as a result of these fraudulent claims went to the identity thieves, and the individuals whose names and personal information were taken did not receive any of the payments. So if that were to happen, identity having been stolen, the taxpayer didn't file for unemployment, possibly they didn't need it or feel that they needed to, someone else then took the unemployment and filed for it, and now the taxpayer is going to get the 1099, which would be reporting the income that they didn't actually receive, and you don't want to have to include that if you didn't actually get the income. So taxpayers who receive an incorrect Form 1099-G for unemployment benefits they did not receive should contact the issuing state agency to request a revised Form 1099-G showing they did not receive these benefits. Taxpayers who are unable to obtain timely corrected form from state should still file an accurate tax return reporting only the income they received. A corrected Form 1099-G showing zero unemployment benefits in cases of identity theft will help taxpayers avoid being hit with an unexpected federal tax bill for unreported income. So you're going to try to get the 1099-G corrected by the state. Now, if you can't get it corrected by the state and it's wrong, it's still incorrect, then you may still want to push through with filing the tax return with the correct amount on it. And if you didn't get the unemployment benefits, then you should not include it even though you have the 1099. But if you can't push through the 1099-G to be corrected and be sent to both you and the government, the IRS, then you may get a letter back that says, hey, the IRS thinks that you owe more money based on this 1099, and then you'll have to basically argue it from that point forward, which if that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. But what you'd like to do is get it fixed as quickly as possible, and the fastest way to do that would be to correct the 1099. The IRS previously issued guidance requested by state or identity theft guidance regarding unemployment compensation reporting. There's a link to that here. No Form 1099-G should be issued to those individuals the states have identified as ID theft victims. Know the signs of identity theft. So taxpayers do not need to file a Form 14039 identity theft affidavit with the IRS regarding an incorrect Form 1099-G. The identity theft affidavit should be filed only if the taxpayer e-filed return is rejected because the return using the same Social Security number already has been filed. So if someone committed identity theft with regards to the 1099-G, then they have stolen that identity information and attempted to get unemployment compensation from the state. But that's different than basically identity theft, which would be filing a fraudulent tax return if there was a fraudulent tax return filed in order to get basically a refund on the tax side. And that's what the Form 14039 identity affidavit generally is for. So if you got a 1099-G, then your remedy for that is not to go to the federal side and file Form 14039 identity theft affidavit, but instead go to the issuer of the 1099, that being the state, and see if you can have them correct that. If, on the other hand, you did have an identity theft on the federal level, meaning someone filed your tax return with your Social Security number, then that might be the situation where you look at the Form 14039 federal theft affidavit. So the Identity Theft Central, there's a link to that here for more information about signs of identity theft and general steps that should be taken. Additionally, if taxpayers are concerned that their personal information has been stolen and they want to protect their identity when filing their federal tax return, they can request an Identity Protection PIN, an IPPIN, from the IRS. So if, for example, someone stole your identity and then they used it to get the unemployment from the state, now they've used your identity, which could include your Social Security number and your name and your address possibly, in order to get benefits from the state. Even though they haven't done so yet to commit fraud on the federal side, you might say, well, now they have the information. They may not have done it yet, but they could possibly file then a federal tax return with that same information and try to commit fraud by receiving a refund from the Fed. How can I proactively block that if I'm in a situation where someone already has like my Social Security number and whatnot? Well, for that, you might want to then look at the Identity Protection PIN, and that system basically allows you to go to the IRS and ask for another number that would be in addition to your Social Security number that would then allow you to file your tax return only when you have those two verification numbers, and that will help to prevent any kind of fraud with relation to the filing of the tax return. So if someone has stolen your information and they haven't basically filed a tax return with it yet, then you don't really want to file the Form 14039, because that's really what you do after that someone has already basically filed the tax return and you try to file it and it got kicked back. So it's kind of too late for any preventative action at that point. But if someone has your information and you want to have preventative action, then you might want to look at the Identity Protection PIN, which will give you that second identity verification number so that hopefully whoever stole the information doesn't have that information and then can't file a fraudulent tax return and try to get a refund from it. An identity protection PIN is a 6-digit number that prevents someone else from filing a tax return using a taxpayer's social security number. The IPPIN is known only to the taxpayer and the IRS, and this step helps the IRS verify the taxpayer identity when they file their electronic or paper tax return. Remember, for those receiving unemployment benefits, report your benefits when you file your tax return. The IRS reminds taxpayers that unemployment benefits are taxable and they should watch their mail for a Form 1099-G. In some states, taxpayers may be able to receive the Form 1099-G by visiting their state's unemployment website, where they signed up for the account benefits to obtain their account information. So you might be able to get it electronically. So starting in January 2021, unemployment benefit recipients should receive a Form 1099-G, certain government payments, there's a link to that here, from the agency paying the benefits. The form will show the amount of unemployment compensation they received during 2020 in Box 1 and any federal income tax withheld in Box 4. Taxpayers report their information along with their W-2 income on their 2020 federal tax return. For more information on unemployment, see Unemployment Benefits in Publication 525. There's a link to Publication 525 here, as well as other links in this presentation or in this page, and there'll be a link to this in the description.